Welcome to Cooperville.
Do you know what's fun to do in Cooperville? Pack up your shit and get the fuck out!
Listen. www.welcometocooperville.com. Who the fuck says www anymore? I can't even say it. www. Stop that. The Welcome to Cooperville podcast. On demand anywhere quality podcasts are available. And some places where cheap podcasts are available.
And the local gas station has some.
Subscribe, get updates, feel better about your life. Welcome to Cooperville.com.
Check one, check.
Welcome to Cooperville. Make sure you use a coaster. The wife gets upset when we leave rings on the tables.
Dwayne Crawford, my friend, longtime amigo, compadre, troublemaker, reunited at last. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
You know, I complain about things, but nobody listens anyway, so I just kind of just let it ride.
Kind of gave up on it, right?
Yeah, you know, I see there's no point to it. I speak, and then I'm like, I have a 9-year-old and a wife, and nobody's listening to what I have to say.
I can relate so hard to that.
'Cause you got two, don't you? You got 2 kids, right?
I do.
Oof.
I do. Yeah, it's fun.
I was an only child myself, but what I've realized, and he hasn't quite caught on to yet, is when you have 2, there's somebody else to blame. You know, if something is amiss or not done or broken, you know, we're like, it was you, dude. Like, there's no sibling to be like.
There's no one to blame.
Sorry, man. Dad wasn't in here with the making fucking slime, you know. It wasn't me. But yeah,
That's
man.
Awesome.
So we, you and I met. I think it was really cool because we put an active rock station on the air, almost 6 years ago, and the first concert that the station had done was Royal Bliss and Bobaflex, and it was a show in Wisconsin in, I believe it was February. I think we had a wind chill advisory for about 46 below zero.
Yep.
And sold that.
So bad. So bad.
Neil came into the studio, and he looked like he had just, like, it was some sort of Eskimo attire, and then like we got down to the venue, and there was people. I mean, it's Wisconsin. People are kind of used to that kind of environment, so they're just like standing outside of the door of the venue waiting to get in. And you guys are inside the venue. We did a little meet and greet thing, still all bundled up. Like, it's still fucking cold in here, man. But it was a sold out show, man. It got hot that night. It was sold out. It was amazing. So that's how we first crossed paths in life.
Absolutely. Not one of our best decisions to make it to Wisconsin in February, but hey,
you know,
I'll take it.
I did notice after that show, rarely, if ever, did the Royal Bliss bus make it north of the Mason-Dixon line, you know, anytime really between like November and about March 15th. You know, there was, some routing was done a little bit better after that.
You know, we would try. It feels like every year we would end up in La Crosse.
Yeah.
Every winter. I don't know why. In Michigan, which is another one of those just terrible places. But for whatever reason, it never stopped us.
No, can't stop it. Now I want to
stubborn.
Take you back to before the Royal Bliss days, because obviously the band based out of Utah, a place where you still reside, call home to this day. How does one go from Atlanta, Georgia, to Salt Lake City, Utah? I mean, did you take a wrong turn? It feels like you were going to California, and like your car broke down. You're like, well, shit, since I'm here.
Well, originally I was actually going to be living in Atlanta and just traveling back and forth, being in Bliss. I actually joined Bliss living in Atlanta. And what happened at that point was I flew out, Taylor picked me up from the airport, and I pretty much fell in love with the place. The second we were joining or kind of switching over to the interstate, and I saw downtown and saw the mountains in the background, it blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind. So I kind of fell in love with the place, and I ended up moving about 2 weeks later. Yeah, so
I feel like Salt Lake is one of those places that obviously it's a metropolitan area. It's a larger city, but it feels like it's one of those places that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of like big, beautiful cities in America. It's weird.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of people don't know what to think when you tell them you live in Salt Lake City. A lot of people are like, first off, where is that? Second off, why isn't it somewhere I've heard about more often? But to be honest, I mean, I've been to 48 states, and I'd say Salt Lake City is one of my favorite cities. I mean, hands down, it's beautiful, it's clean. The people here are wonderful. I mean, I've been here nearly 10 years. I love it.
Where did music find its way into your life that it became, a passion for you, a career path that, you decided, now this is, I'm going to leave Atlanta and, I'm going to pursue music. I'm going to be on a bus or a Sprinter or a van with a bunch of dudes traveling to godforsaken Wisconsin in February. This is my path. Where did you first pick up, the guitar, the bass guitar and music in your life?
Well, I've been in bands since I was about 15, which obviously means a completely different thing at the age of 15. Right. But I started touring at 17. I was lucky enough to, I guess, trick some older guys into thinking that I was good enough to play for them. So I did a lot of Southeast kind of like regional touring when I was 17, 18. At 21, I got hired to be a touring musician for a band. And then at 23, I was hired for another band doing a full national tour opening for Bliss, which is actually how I ended up meeting them in the first place. And then when Tommy left, which was the bass player I replaced, Tommy ended up reaching out. Well, Tommy had told them that they should reach out to me, so they had started calling me. And yeah, it's just been my life. I mean, I'm 34 years old. I've been doing it for literally half my life at this point.
Yeah, and you've been able to, like you said, see 99% of the country, travel everywhere, see almost everything, play with, when you hit that festival circuit, you're playing with a lot of bands, probably, some idols, some heroes.
Oh yeah.
Where, when you are on the road that much, and we talked about in the open, having kids, having a family, and Royal Bliss being one of those bands, I like in like Boba Flex and even the guys in Wayland who, especially in the first, when they had a song that hit and hit charts, all of a sudden you're on the road. And for you guys and those other bands I mentioned, it seems like it was almost a constant thing, always on the road, always doing, even if it was a short run, it was a short break and then right back on the road. What kind of toll does that take, not only physically on you, but, the strain of being away from, from home, from family, for long periods of time. And once you get up to Wisconsin, things just get messy in general. So, you know what I'm saying?
It's tough. It's always been a love-hate thing for me. Mm-hmm. You're out there, you're doing what you love. You know what I mean? And everybody thinks it's just this wonderful thing. And at times it is. It's great. But being away from family, it's tough. Taking time to call your kids. Luckily, we have, things like FaceTime, Skype. So you get to see, like you and I are doing right now. But
see our beautiful faces.
Yeah, missed your face. But yeah, it's a tough situation because you want to be grateful while you're out there, and you are grateful, but at the same time you're getting beat up, both physically, mentally. It's not always a great situation for the spouses back home or girlfriends or whatever you got, and your kids don't understand that you're going out and you're actually working. And in this day and age, you've got to tour so much because it's the only thing that can't be pirated, that can't be stolen from you. It's, you know what I mean? It's your guaranteed income is touring. With music piracy and everything else, bands have had to get creative and basically live on the road and sell merchandise day in and day out. But I also want to point out, I don't think anybody stays on the road as much as Wayland. Those guys, God, no. They live in that bus, man. It's crazy.
No, I had Phil on one of my first episodes. They happened to be shockingly in town, and I talked to him about that too. And for those guys, not having, and maybe it's different, when you don't have the wives and kids back at home, I think the road almost becomes that's your family. That's why, you kind of continue to go back to these places because at least, when those guys are in town, I'm like, yeah, come over, grab a hot shower, throw some laundry in, have a moment that's not, inside a venue or sound check or going to Planet Fitness to, take a shower. So,
Yeah.
that's, I was always amazed by that because they did, I know you guys did as well. Just constantly toured because the industry has changed so much. And then the dreams, I think, of young musicians growing up and, MTV, I think, being during a certain time period before they went off the rails, kind of portrayed this lifestyle like, man, if I pick up a guitar or I pick up an instrument or I can sing, and here is a visual stimulant of what's waiting on the other side.
Right.
It's a Motley Crue video just fucking waiting to happen like that. And you have, these kids, these garage bands going, yeah, I want to pursue that. And some can make it and some can't. But I think, when you look at not even 2019, but the last decade or so, with the, I won't say demise of terrestrial radio. I mean, I spent 20 years of my life doing it, but we could tell in radio how it had changed because of the fact that all of a sudden, I mean, bands were constantly stopping by. It became part of, here we are in, we're market 236 and all these bands are stopping by just because they wanted to get, an extra 5 or 10 people out, and we have band members directly pushing, singles out, to us personally because they, got to get those people to the venue because it's not sell a million records, get the cash, they're paying for the bus, girls by the wayside. That's just not the way it works. And with streaming now and YouTube and all these other avenues for people to get music, nobody's going and popping down, $14.99 for a CD anymore. It's just not how it works.
Nope, not at all. And it's kind of I think streaming is kind of a necessary evil, to be honest with you, because you're reaching a fan base that you would not have otherwise reached.
Right.
But at the same time, it's taking from you financially. So you've got to get more creative, which also for the lower level bands makes it more difficult because they've got to make X amount of dollars to even get to the next city. Mm-hmm. And there's just this huge cramp on lower to mid-level bands that's really just crippling the industry. And to be honest, I mean, I've been out of it nearly 2 years now with my departure from Bliss. And, I can't say I'm angry about it. Yeah. I enjoy performing. I enjoy the musical aspect, but I still ride at home. I still get to, do my thing with a lot of my friends. With technology these days, I can connect with anyone I want to write music, but it's such a rat race. It's so difficult to just stay afloat. And I mean, even a band that's seemingly doing well, can have its tough points. You know what I mean? I mean, there's just not enough money to go around in the industry anymore. And it's basically due to streaming, piracy, and just overall music theft.
Do you, when you look at, we'll kind of stick specifically in the rock genre, do you feel like there is the big bands, there doesn't seem to be a rotation of talent moving to an A level? If you're a chart watcher, I never really was as a program director, but if you watch the charts, there's 5 or 6 bands that constantly go from debut to top 10 to 1, hold 1, and then, eventually fall out just in time for single 2 to come out. And there's 5 or 6 of those bands that, and really, if you want to look across any festival poster that's across the country, it's really a rotation of the same 5 or 6. There's some that have had some longevity. I look at guys like Manson and Zombie who are, touring together right now. They're not even at that level where they're popping out singles and boom, they're going to 1, but they have a catalog of, 90 minutes worth of songs everybody knows that they can come out and perform. So do you feel like that the industry is keeping those low to mid-level bands from making that, it should be cyclical. It should move in not that the bands on top should go away, but the low to mid-level you should move from low to mid, and then, whatever happens, the graces of, the industry insiders that go, oh, well, now that you're a mid, we can put you up here,
right.
With the big boys. Is there a force keeping down bands from, getting that ideal success that I think, when I mentioned Motley Crue videos that just, won't let the little guys get up, or they're hand picking bands to be the next big ones?
I think it's a combination of record labels and record labels involvement with terrestrial radio. I mean, it's a hand in hand marriage that honestly, I mean, they work seamlessly together. They're not allowed to say that they get, radio's not allowed to say that they get paid. But they get their perks, they get their benefits from these record labels to spin these singles, and
not in market.
That's great.
Not in market 236. I'm still
Sure.
waiting for those checks to come. If anybody wants to PO box them to me, that'd be great. But no, I get what you're saying. In the top 100 markets, yeah, I feel that.
It's insane, and you're right. It is the same 5 or 6 bands, and that's great. Good for them. They're going to have the longevity. It's going to carry out, but it's keeping a lot of really good bands from being able to make it to a point that they can carry on and have a successful career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was talking to Matt Dorito from Pop Evil a couple weeks ago. Another one of those bands that, really did a lot of their stuff early on their own, kept their things independent. They have a great team behind them. But they were like the anomaly. They were the band that was dropping songs that were charting well, moving up the charts, constantly touring, and still would get the 3:00 slot at a festival. And
yep.
and he even said that he's like, they caught on at the tail wave of kind of the terrestrial radio tidal wave of everybody jump on board and here we go, we're going to skyrocket over, and they kind of fell into the the undertow of that. So they themselves feel like we're kind of the biggest smaller band that there is out there. So I look at that, Pop Evil being kind of the band that is still kind of up, and everybody else is kind of falling in the wash a little bit with the way radio's going. I think there's some great artists out there that have really embraced technology and have solely focused. They've taken their focus away from terrestrial radio and have really focused on streaming. They've focused on, lining up their own tours, being in charge of their own music, finding different avenues to get, their songs out to people. But it's still such a tough road. I mean, you and I have, been in cahoots for 5 years and on and off in different shows. And we've talked about this, and a lot of bands like, that were at a Royal Bliss level or around there have all kind of said the same thing. And I think when you watch it, and we'll talk about the departure from Bliss here, because you see that in a lot of other bands too, is, it's a tough toll, it's the family
Absolutely.
toll. And it's like, oh my God, when you get off the road and you have a break and you go, okay, well, here's what we got. Here's the end result, and you go, well, shit. Okay.
What do I do now?
I can pay. You got to find other side jobs and different things to do, and so it's just the industry itself is. It's gonna. I feel a major change is probably coming. With the reliance on terrestrial radio. I don't know that XM, Sirius XM has really taken on, everybody always says, oh yeah, we're top 5 on the, the numbers of XM are still pretty low. But when you start to look at individuals that are streaming, that's how the music's getting out. It's figuring out a way to monetize that for the artists, because eventually someone's going to go, why the fuck am I doing this? Like what? Yes. Art, creativity and writing and getting your songs out there is great, but some people want to eat.
Exactly.
Some people want to be able to, have a home or be able to afford children. They're not cheap. Those little bastards cost money every single day.
Right? Tell me about it.
Right before this podcast, my son all of a sudden wanted like a new tire pump for his bike. I'm like, so off we went to the hardware store and bought, like, dude, like every day you cost me money. But without, as an artist, as a musician, without some sort of income coming in from the streaming devices, and it's so minute. I mean, I'm not even sure if it counts as we're going to be able to survive off of this, but
no,
it feels like there's emphatically said, no, you cannot. But I feel like there's going to have to, there's going to have to be a come to Jesus moment, I think, with
Absolutely.
artists and the industry. And I think even, with the demise, I hate saying demise because it feels like I'm jaded because I'm out of radio now, but with how the move away from terrestrial radio continues and will continue with technology to advance in smart cars and all this other stuff that's out here, they're going to have to find a different way. Those folks that you talked about at the record labels are going to have to find different avenues to get paid and be able to afford the really nice tour buses and the, lavish,
Yep.
we're going to do a one-off here in Wisconsin. Well, who wants to take a flight from Southern California to the Chippewa Valley Regional Airport? It's not cheap, the airport's
Exactly.
this big,
Yep.
But yeah, it'll be an interesting, next 5 to 10 years in the industry to see where it goes and, kind of who survives. I want to say the cut, but who's going to cut their teeth and
There's going to be a cut for
Yeah.
sure. There's going to be a lot of bands that just can't do it. It gets more and more scarce every year, and all of those expenses, as far as the band's doing a one-off because a record label recommends it, the band's paying for that. That's coming out of the band funds. So, you figure you fly a band, you fly crew. I mean, you're in the hole thousands of dollars on some of these tours or some of these one-off dates, and
Yeah.
it's ridiculous. And then there's a new thing where all the lower level bands are paying to get on these tours. They'll pay $20,000-$30,000 to a big name band that's, making money just so they can get in front of a 6:00 audience as people are coming in the doors at an arena gig to play for a couple thousand people. It's awful.
Yeah,
I don't miss it. I don't miss it at all.
I'm not sad. I sleep well. Life is good.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Hearing the numbers, I've obviously worked with local festivals, and you hear the exorbitant amount, and it continues to grow. And it's this way, not only rock, but it's in country too. I mean, and I think and country's weird, because I have dabbled in my career in country. I know you guys have a little bit too. It amazes me the differences between rock and country. Rock, you better have like 5 or 6 solid songs before we know who you are. In country, you need one. You need one song. Not even a whole, you can just have a catchy chorus and they're like, yep, that girl, or yep, that guy. And all of a sudden they're co-headlining at these major festivals, underneath a Blake Shelton or, somebody who has some longevity but the money they're pulling in for one festival gig. And I get it. That money's not going, it's getting split. But holy shit. Like,
I'll tell you this.
Gig.
As playing a side stage when Bliss was doing the country thing, playing a side stage, our first time playing these festivals, no charting singles. We had a single on CMT.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That was it. Like real basic stuff. New band to the country world. We were making double playing the country festivals than we would make in some of the really good slots we'd get on rock festivals. There's that much more money in it. It's insane. Absolutely insane. But the other thing is what you have to look at is market reach.
Yeah.
Because you could chart in country, you could chart like 30 or 25. I can't remember. Neil and I actually did the math a few years ago, and I know it's only just increased, but you could chart it like 30 and it's still more plays than the number one at rock radio. Like if you look at the actual numbers of how many spins they're getting, it's insane. It's like 3-1 country stations over rock stations these days.
And I know there's a split in country. There is, especially more recently, there's been a split, I think, between those who are so hardcore, the old country sound, and then those who are, basically Garth on. Garth changes the game, and then the sound just kind of adapts, and now Nelly is on, country radio, and,
right.
People's minds are blown. But that split all it did was spawn more country stations. It spawned country stations that specifically stopped at an era and said, okay, we're not playing anything before here. And they're doing really well because they have their own core audience. And then the new country stations are just blowing it up. I mean, and they're just pounding out new artists. It feels like daily. Daily.
Absolutely. And the thing is they'll sustain because they've adapted.
Yeah.
They're not stuck in a formula. And I know a lot of people want to talk trash and say, oh, country, all new country sounds the same. But guess what? All new country was willing to adapt and move into this realm where now not only are they getting the country guys and girls that are listening to radio, they're getting pop. They're getting this huge audience. I mean, they're basically monopolizing radio at this point because they're willing to adapt. There are country artists that are out there that have kind of a rock and roll sound, and they're gathering that audience too. They're willing to adapt, and it shows. I don't think rock radio was willing to do that. For a while, there were so many bands that were coming out that everything sounded machined. Everything sounded like it came off of an assembly line. And those are the bands that were doing well for a while. And that was it. It was very limited. And that's exactly why the number 1 on rock radio has less plays than the number 25 or the number 30 on country radio.
Yeah, and I think rock radio has the difference between rock radio and country radio is that country was, like you said, willing to adapt to say, we don't need to have, George Strait's going to probably come out with another song at some point just because he's George Strait. But we don't need to have this genre of our format to be successful. Where rock, I think, still believes, and maybe it is a necessity, that rock radio can't live without Nirvana. It can't live without grunge. It can't live without 90s. And it can't live without hand-picked songs from prior to that. It can't live without, Motley Crue, and it can't live without, Metallica, and still probably can't live without Metallica, and Judas Priest, the founders of the metal format. But what happens is that now you have such a divided, and country fans seem to be more accepting of sounds, where you guys probably felt this, where rock fans are in their lane. And some can be broad. I mean, I would listen to Kings of Leon and listen to Slayer. But a lot of times I'm in the Slayer lane and fuck everybody else who's not over here or sounds like it or tries, if they even try to sound like them. And then you try to get in some of these more pop sounding acts or bands that don't have that sound, or even like a Greta Van Fleet who comes out sounding like Zeppelin, and people either go, oh my God, this is amazing, or what the hell is this doing on my radio?
Right.
They're just, I understand the angst within rock. It's kind of what we're known for, and we're the rebels, but all we kind of do is just piss on each other. We're like, now fuck you and your band too, and my band's the best, and it's and to try to have a radio station, to try to have a format that you can cultivate new artists and bring them in and different sounds and people that aren't being pushed by a label. It's tough. It's a tough row to hoe, as they say.
Absolutely.
So you made the decision to leave the band. It was one of it. There was a lot of the bands I mentioned, and I mentioned those because to me, you guys, the Wayland guys, Bubble Flex guys, Adelaide's Way. There's a handful of other artists, especially because they were up here a lot, that we became friends with. That we knew all the members. When you see kind of a guy leave and you understand the circumstances, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. You were the first one when you left. I was like, oh shit, like what happened? Because I think Cry Sister had hit right when we did that first show together. Yeah, and the success was building. The show, the tour dates were constant, and there was few breaks. And we developed. I know you did this in a lot of other markets too. Namely La Crosse, Jimmy's Juke Joint up in Bloomer. I'm targeting locations. Yeah, but built this kind of this fan base, this real grassroots fan base. So every time a song would come out for us who didn't look at the charts, Royal Bliss has a new song. And so the success regionally, locally was noticeable. The decision to leave, when I saw, I don't know if it's a Facebook post or how I found out about it. I mean, it was shocking to me. How was that decision-making process for you?
I think for me, it kind of just got to a point that I wasn't enjoying myself. Mm-hmm. I I caught myself up in the business aspect entirely too much. And I think with touring kind of taking toll and just a lot of factors of being in a band that I won't dive into.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's just after a while when you start realizing that you don't like who you're becoming and you're becoming an unpleasant person. I mean, I'll be the first to admit I was an asshole a lot. I just got to a point I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to be out there anymore. I didn't want to deal with everything. It wasn't worth the 90 minutes that I got to perform a night that I truly enjoyed. Mm-hmm. The work leading up to it just was not fulfilling for me anymore. Right. That and, just the whole struggle of being a mid-level band and trying to, as a business, we were really successful, but the business obviously has a lot of expenses. Right. And, as an individual, we weren't necessarily making a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And, that struggle and that stress obviously comes home and you add all that stuff together and kind of put it in a pot and stir it up over time. It's going to start getting a little crazy. And I think my realization was just kind of coming through and doing the festival circuit in 2017, early on in May, and just kind of realizing like, I'm not happy out here. And so, it was it was a mutual decision, to be perfectly honest with you. It was one of those things that was brought up because I was being a miserable human being. And, honestly, I was thankful. It made a very difficult decision easy for me when it was brought up. And I mean, we parted amicably. Mm-hmm. I actually did an entire month of dates after this conversation, this incredibly awkward conversation of hey, you've been an asshole. Hey, yeah, I've been really unhappy. Yeah. You're not happy doing this anymore. No, I'm not. So we decided that my last run was September 2017, mm-hmm. and my last dates were in Wisconsin.
Of course,
go figure.
Of course,
go figure. Yeah.
If you're gonna go with a bang, is what they say.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So
I've talked to a lot of artists. The road can harden you. It can. What we see as fans of a band or of an artist, we get that 90 minutes that you spoke of. That's what we get to witness. We get to see and maybe for some more hardcore fans, you get to see a little more, whether follow them on social media, you get to see some behind the scenes stuff. You do the meet and greet, you guys,
sure.
Hanging out afterwards. That was, a part of the Royal Bliss thing as well. So, you elongate that into, 4 or 5 hours out of a show day. But what we don't, when the fans go home, however they get there, God, messy. But how are we in Bloomer? How the fuck are we going to get home? Follow the bus. But, fans get to go home. And then, the day after, or that night, they have to post the pictures of the good times. Sure. And friends, the concerts are that camaraderie. They're bringing people together and fans meeting fans or, getting a night out and, witnessing something. And you get to kind of live off that enjoyment of that one night for a
sure.
week or however, and it pops up in your memories a year later and you're like, oh, that was an amazing night. So what we don't see is you guys, after everybody else goes home, Brian Simpson puts the bottle of Jameson away, or it's empty. You pack up, you get on the bus, and you're off to the next show. You're off to the next, and then it's lather, rinse, repeat, and over
Absolutely.
And over again. So
5-6 days a week.
Yeah, it's got to. You mentioned taking a toll and changing you into a different person, a person you didn't like. But yeah, it's a hardening thing, and I can see how that over and over and over again. And
yeah.
as much as you love fans, I mean, you love them because they support your music, because they sing along, because they provide
Absolutely.
you with that outlet. But I can see after several years and end of a long run or a long summer and just going, oh my God, fucking people, like lock me into a quiet room and let me have some, a safe room for a week.
For me, and this is kind of going to that whole, the part people don't see. I mean, even following people on social media is designed. I mean, as well as I do, you don't put the real stuff out there.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're a persona. You're a rock star. You're an actor, whatever. And so what you're doing out there is you're creating this like, oh, everything's great, everything's amazing, everything's a blast. And what people don't understand is they don't see you when you're at home, you're off the road, and you're having to book your tours, because we were an independent band, and a lot of independent bands go through this. And, after a while you lose the drive for that, but you're booking your own tours. You're advancing all of your shows, making sure every single show that you've got has all your technical information. And there's a lot of work. Yep. Then you load in and we weren't at a Shine Down or a Five Finger Death Punch or a Hailstorm level where we have a crew that does every single thing for us. So We're loading in, we're setting up, we're sound checking, so our day started at 2:00 in the afternoon for load in. You load in, you set up, you sound check. That was a 2 to 5 schedule. You do a VIP or a meet and greet or something like that for an hour. You've got a couple of hours to eat dinner, maybe shower, something like that. And then the show starts. I mean, you're looking at 12-hour days, which is, again, it sounds bad when you're complaining about a 12-hour day in rock and roll, but 5-6 days a week, you're doing shots with fans after the shows and sleeping in a moving vehicle. And, it wears on you. It really wears on you. And the amount of work that you're putting into it at home, like, you're not off when you're off the road. You're at home. You're booking your tour. You're keeping your business alive and afloat. And it's a constant thing. There's never any real time off.
Yeah. And not to mention, trying to keep, new music and trying, to write and to, plan. Are we doing a record? Are we doing an EP? Are we going to release a single? I think the glory of technology has made maybe that process of getting a single out or getting, that's made it easier to get to the fan base. But again, the check doesn't come in with a lot of zeros on the end of it, even once you put a song out, or any zeros, just the change zero. But, it's, I think you hit the nail on the head with the social media aspect of it, because it's life in filters. You don't see the fights with the kids. You see them when they're being good and they're like, oh, look, he's doing something adorable. Take a picture of it. Where's my Dad of the Year belt? I can hold it over my shoulder and point it. Yeah. That, see that shit? Yeah, I took him to the pool. Yeah, what do I win? Cost me money.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
And that's downtime. And you got, obviously with doing a lot of tours during summer, and I guess we have 4 seasons up here, so maybe you don't get to enjoy everything shuts down from fucking November until, March, maybe April. But to be able to enjoy like family time, when you're off the road and you're doing all the things that you mentioned and trying to write new songs and then, planning rehearsals and then, all right, it's time for the next 6-week run or however long you guys would go out. Oh, I guess we should do something, family. I leave in 48 hours. You add that dimension of stress on there, and
there's all of that, and then you're booking shows regionally while you're off the road to make ends meet. So even every Friday, Saturday that you have at home, you don't get those as date nights or nights to take the kids to do anything, because you're trying to keep a check in your pocket. Yeah, and it was just a never-ending cycle. There was no downtime, and it really just started wearing on me. And then you take that and the stress of, struggling as a business to stay afloat, and, just fighting this machine is what it feels like. You're just fighting this machine of the industry. And it's just, it beat me up. Yeah. So
when you left, I know that obviously you said the split was amicable. Was there, have you noticed, I guess now in almost 2 years, that people who you thought would be there, that friendships that you developed over, your time in the band or your time in music, that once you were out of it, they weren't there? I mean, did you notice any of that, or has everybody been supportive of your decision? And
I've had a lot of support, actually. All the people that I considered to be friends, whether, in other touring bands or, people like yourself, I've stayed pretty close. I mean, there are even venue contacts that I don't book with anymore, obviously, that I still reach out to and have random conversations with. So I would say that overall it was a pretty smooth thing for me. And I haven't really noticed anything like that.
Yeah, I know when I left radio, and I had obviously had a lot of people in the industry, name drop you, others that have been on the podcast, people that reached out right away, indie label guys that I've worked with over the years that were very supportive and encouraged me to get back in the radio. And I was like, kind of got an exit ramp handed to me, and I'm not really too sad about the what had happened. But what I did realize, and maybe it's tough for, obviously I had friends on social media that were friends of mine because of the fact that I was the guy who was talking on the radio, and I was like, hey, here's Royal Bliss, and they're, hey, you going to the show? We going to do this? And so there was, we weren't like hanging out, but we were, acquaintances because of, they were fans of the station, and they were fans of artists that we played. What I did notice is that those people were like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I don't care about your kid pictures anymore. Like, it's cute before, when he was with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm, when he's hanging out with you at the pool, it's not that cool. I think that's, that's part of, I think when you get out of, I want to say a spotlight, but when you get out of a constant tool to communicate with other people, to speak to them, and really to, in my profession and in your profession, super serve them what they came for. They came to a show to see, a show. You delivered that for them. They listened to my station for, the music they wanted to hear, entertainment, local news, the stuff that they came for. So it's not like we're come to my restaurant. Oh, I wanted tacos. Well, we're serving pizza here, So it was weird to see, after leaving radio, not just the listeners that were, there's still a handful that are very supportive. They listen to the podcast, and I appreciate all of them. But the ones that were like super hardcore are like, yeah, who's the new guy? What's his name? Let me get a hold of him. Right. Okay, go for it. But
to add on to that, I would say that the people, at least for me, the people that I lost in that kind of situation aren't really the ones that I really consider. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I'm not upset about any of those people that I lost, the people that were obviously there for a reason. I get that. Yeah. But I've had a lot of support. I've had a lot of people reach out in regards to asking if I'm doing any new music or anything like that. And so it's been cool.
And your response to them is, are you working on stuff? Are you doing things? Are you fiddling around a little bit?
I am, but I'm doing it casually. Like I do a little bit of writing with my buddy, Chris from the band Brother Gray. I do a little bit of writing with a buddy of mine, Jimmy, in Washington State. It's just, it's a slow process. Everybody's got jobs, and you work it here and there. But I have no interest in putting myself in another band situation, in another touring band situation. Right. You know what I mean? So
you leave Royal Bliss. You just mentioned the touring band part of it is done for you. And the next thing I read from your filtered life, filtered life of Dwayne Crawford and what he's up to, tour manager for Stormy Daniels.
Yes. Yes.
Was there did you know Stormy beforehand, or was this something like, because I'll look at job openings all the time, and I never see something of that magnitude. Like, I'm like Google. So I'm like, no, like I could, no, nobody's hiring. Nobody's looking for that
No.
gig. So was there a relationship there before?
Yeah. So I've actually known her for almost 11 years now.
Yep.
I actually met her on the same tour that I met Bliss, which is pretty interesting. I was touring in a band that hired me out of Tampa, Florida, when I was still living in Atlanta. Did the tour with Bliss, literally left from there, went to LA to shoot a music video, and she directed the music video. So her and I just kind of connected. I was the one guy in the band that wasn't like this creepy weirdo that really cared who she was.
Yeah, I get it.
I was just a real person. And after that tour, I actually left that tour because the guitar player was the money guy. He was just an older guy that woke up one day and decided he wanted to be a rock star and spend all of his wife's money to do so. And he and I got into it in LA, and I ended up flying home from the tour. But anyhow, like a month later, she was in Atlanta for her birthday, performing at the Pink Pony. And so she invited me down, and then literally like 3 weeks later, her assistant quit. So she needed somebody to fill in. I wasn't doing anything. I was between tours, so I started working for her, just kind of traveling around as her assistant. And I did that on and off. I mean, on and off over the last, I guess, 8 years, kind of sporadically through there. And then last year, the timing was actually pretty great. It was about 6 months after my departure from Bliss. She reached out to me and she just said, hey, I really need somebody I can trust, somebody that I like. Will you fill in on some of these dates? So I did. I was actually trying to keep a normal job here in Salt Lake City and kind of juggle the two, but then her schedule just kept adding and kept adding and kept adding. And kind of got to a point that she just offered me a full-time position to just do whatever as an assistant, tour manager, like pretty much everything. And fast forward, 15 months now, I guess. Still there, still working my ass off.
It's no rest. You're never going to get off a tour bus, man. You're just going to be on a tour bus.
I know, man. I know. Lately, it's been airports, which is, I mean, fine, I guess, but you know, it's a much better situation to me, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not fighting a machine. I'm not, like in this instance, I'm literally taking care of a friend, you know, and helping assist with her business needs, and it's actually it's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, because I mean the timing of it all. I mean, there's obviously she was in the news a lot. There was a lot of controversy surrounding her and, you know, the human being that is currently running the country.
Into the ground.
Just trying to keep it afloat over here, man. Just trying to brace myself for the flood.
How do I say this?
How do I say this gently? Where's the paddle? Oh, I got a Liney's paddle right behind me, so I'm good. But
nice.
You know, there's a lot, I imagine, that comes out of, and I think with the band, you know, you deal with comments, with criticism, you know, but I imagine this is probably on a complete different level because people are fucking nasty. I mean, like, whatever your either political views are or, you know, religious views or whatever you're into or against, like there seems to be a real lack of just common human decency, especially when it involves social media. And when you have so many dynamic moving parts of, you know, an adult film starlet, the president of the, nobody saw that because it's a podcast, but I just air quoted that. So Dwayne saw it and smiled. So I figured I better make light of it. I air quoted that. So obviously you have some major components to this that you are probably more witness to than, you know, what we see on the news, if you're into watching the news, you know.
Right.
But it seems like she tolerates things really well. Like
She's got thick skin.
Yeah.
I mean, she's dealt with this kind of stuff her entire life, and I don't know if you follow her on Twitter, but I mean, she's pretty much the clapback queen when it comes to people reaching out and thinking that they're getting the best of her by calling her a whore, or calling her whatever. I mean, she owns it, whatever, you know. But you know, to be honest, she's dealt with a lot. She's been through a lot, and in light of that, I think for me anyway, it kind of puts some perspective on things that I've been through that I thought were just so bad, because I mean, she's literally been through hell, and she comes out smiling, you know?
And how do you, I mean, I'm imagining this, you know, having a friend, somebody that you care about, that, you know, there's mutual trust and admiration for. You know, if I had somebody in my life who was taking on, with thick skin, taking on the criticism, and obviously there's support too. I mean, it's not all criticism. There's a ton of support out there. How do you handle, you know, being the friend, being the tour manager, being, you know, kind of the right-hand man of somebody who, you know, especially in the social media world, and even from the biggest tweeter on earth, how do you have any struggles handling like not feeling emotionally like, geez, like I'm gonna go punch this asshole through the computer screen here? Like, do you have a hard time holding back? Because damn, I'd be like,
yeah,
what the fuck did you just say to her?
I do. You know, honestly, there's certain lines that people are just willing to cross because they're keyboard warriors. They sit at home and they've got nothing better to do than to talk shit on somebody that they have no idea about. Right. But you know, there's some things that kind of push you to a point where you want to say something, but I mean, it does no good. You know, at the end of the day, like, these people are going to think what they think. There's no convincing anybody of anything any different. We live in a society where everybody's just so strong-willed and hard-headed that nobody's willing to listen. Right. And everybody just thinks that they already know everything about everything. Nobody's willing to learn. Nobody's willing to admit that they don't know somebody, or that, you know, what their perception is could possibly be wrong. So, you know, at first it was really hard, especially kind of in the heat of everything that happened last year. Right. Now it's just kind of one of those things that, you know, we joke about it. She'll screenshot some really good ones and she'll send them to me, and she's just like, look at this asshole. And it's hilarious. You know, I mean, some of the stuff is just like, wow, you're that ignorant, huh? And you just got to move on, because there's nothing you can do. Right. There's nothing you can say. So you almost want to feed into it, you know, and make it like, take away the satisfaction, like, just own it. You know, they'll call her a whore, and they think it's going to hurt her feelings. Right. So she'll own it. She's like, you know what? Yeah, I'm a really well-paid whore.
I don't know if you should see my diamonds, bitch. But
exactly. So it kind of takes away from that whole satisfaction that they seem to get from talking shit.
Yeah, we're in a weird. When you talk about the social media aspect of it, I think you talk about the political aspect of it. You know, and I think maybe we're not privy to what it really looks like, because everything that we see here, or, you know, ingest, whether forcibly or by scrolling on social media, is always it's a hard line. Like, we live in this hard line world of, it's either you are with this or you are with that. Right. If you were this, then you also get these 12 different things that you also have to believe in. And if you're with these people, well, then you're obviously way over here. It's so, like, the viewpoint is that it's so down the middle, and it's left and right, and then really what gets more highlighted is the extreme left and the extreme right, and we're like we may never have a good, clear indication of actually what the hell is happening in society.
No, absolutely. In media, I've witnessed firsthand just how media can skew a situation. I mean, anything out there, there's always some truth and there's always some untruth. I mean, I've witnessed so many situations where even reputable outlets will twist something just to get the story, just to have the extra clicks. It's hard to believe anything that's out there anymore. Yeah. It's really disgusting at this point.
It really is. It's almost to the point where whatever your belief system happens to be, whatever you feel like hard and fast and steady on, you start going down the rabbit hole of click-throughs and clickbait and reading things, and you start to question then, like, wait a minute, like, no, wait, I thought I was firm in my beliefs on this. Why am I all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Because of one twist of a story. And it's hopefully in the next year, things will start to untangle themselves and we'll have some sense of normalcy. And, but with the new gig, you've been able to probably experience some things that maybe you didn't think, like, hey, I think I again, stalking you on your social medias because it's the pretty filter of here's what we're doing. AVN Awards and Kimmel, I think you guys were on. I mean, is it kind of, I don't want to say surreal, but, obviously you have to be present in those moments and be like, wow, this is pretty neat. Just hanging out back here.
It's been pretty interesting. Like the first week that I jumped back on board, we did Saturday Night Live in New York. So that was interesting. Getting to do SNL with Donald Glover was actually the host, and he was the musical guest, which was really neat. And then getting to meet Alec Baldwin while he's doing his Trump impersonation.
God, that was so fun. Oh man.
We had, who else? Why can't I think of names right now? Anyhow, it was absolutely just unreal. Yeah. It blew my mind, like sitting back there and just being like, what the hell is going on? And then doing Kimmel, and we've done The View. Like you said, AVN Awards, XBiz Awards. We did an awards show, Venus Awards in Berlin, Germany. It's been interesting to say the least.
It sounds like a wild ride, and I think, when you look at all the places that you've been, the people that you've met, scenery, moments, do you get caught up much? Do you have time much to reflect, back on, even starting in music, your time with Royal Bliss, the success there, being on big stages, seeing some idols, perform, and now really traveling globally, with Stormy, and just go, huh, nice. I guess, my other career option of, Dr. Dwayne Crawford, that would have been one option, but do you have pinch me moments? Do you go like, wow, it's been a wild ride so far?
I do. And, there's one thing that I've learned, at least over the last year. And I tried to remind myself of this, being in Bliss and being in a band, but just the older I get, I think it's easier to kind of sit down and really just be thankful. I've had some really interesting jobs. I've been a very fortunate person to do something that I love for a really long time. And I think moving forward, I think one thing that I learned from being in Bliss, it's recognizing and maybe being more honest with myself when I reach a point that I'm not happy doing what I do for a living, right, which I'm nowhere near at this point. But, life's about learning, and while you can be in a really cool job and what looks really awesome, there's definitely times that you really just need to remind yourself that you're pretty fortunate. You'll hit some not so fun times on the road in any situation. And just remind yourself.
Remind yourself, be grateful every day. Wake up, give thanks.
Absolutely.
I do have to, I'm going to end with this. September 20th, are we going to Storm Area 51 with the rest of the crazies to find out if there's aliens inside Area. Have you seen this?
I have, dude. And I don't know what to make of it. You know, I feel like my inner musician wants to believe that if 500,000 people say they're going, that maybe 100 are going to show up.
I was going to say, you got to play the percentages here.
Yeah, that's my experience in rock shows. 500,000 people will say they're coming to your show, and maybe 100 of them show up.
Fucking Facebook.
But it's man, what the fuck is wrong with people? This is not going to end well.
Like you know how this is gonna, like, numbers are great, and somebody had a meme out that I laughed at. It was like, 500,000 jacked up, and it was at Kevin's or whatever. So they have like dude and a wife beater, just all like, against Kyle's. It's Kyle's. Yes. See, I'm off my memes. And then they have like, military, government trained soldiers, on the other side. Who wins? I'm like, 500, if 500,000 people show up, if half of them make it through, I don't know. I feel like they'll use some of that alien technology and just come up from behind, never even know they're there.
I feel like they're ready for it. I mean, it's all over the internet. I've actually seen government officials posting saying, "Do not do this. Yeah. This will not end well. The last person that tried this died."
There are signs. If you watch the Bob Lazar documentary, there are signs outside of Area 51 that says, "We have it within our legal rights to shoot you should you pass this line." And it's a pretty clearly defined line. It's not like, and it's not like the line and then the buildings are right there. It's like a line and then like 8 miles. Like, okay, right. So you got it. You got 8 miles, man. Come on. Jeez.
There's 8 miles for them to just pick off 500,000 people. I trust them. I feel like they can do it. I have faith.
So
no.
Yeah, no,
I will not be there.
We'll stay home and watch it on Facebook Live.
Absolutely. Some asshole's going to have it on there.
Oh, yeah. Look, we're doing it.
We're doing it.
Ooh, got him. Hey, Dwayne, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it.
Dude, thank you.
Great stories and learning about, your new life. And it's good to see you, being happy. It seems like you're in a good spot.
For sure, man. For sure. We'll definitely have to talk. I've got some dates in your area that I'd like to see you come out for. So
let me check my schedule. As long as it's not September 20th, I'm good, because I got to be watching that shit happen, man. It's going down
there.
Fucking E.T., man. E.T.'s coming home. Awesome, brother. Yeah, stay in touch. Let me know about the dates, and let's do this again sometime.
For sure, brother. Thanks so much, man.
Appreciate
Take care.
Man. You too.
All right, see you, man. Bye.